Hi, my name is Bob and I'm renovating this 1973 Egg Harbor Sportfish boat. Hi everyone, welcome to Renovation Sportfish. In this episode we're going to get back onto the cockpit framing project that I kind of went away from for a while. Had to deal with some things on the transom if you were following along. Now that all that is done, we can get back into the framing process back here in the cockpit. Now, I have to remind everybody once in a while, I'm not a professional at this. I don't do boats for a living or anything like that. This is the one and only boat I'm doing, and I'm just dealing with it the way I see fit, and that's how I'm working on this. So hopefully you enjoy this video and you come back for future ones, or go and check out my past ones if you haven't already done that, and maybe subscribe if you like what you see. So yeah, with that we'll get on with the video. I bought this mahogany here, bought a bunch of it on sale, and what I'm going to use it for is this piece of wood that's on it right now. Was attached to the transom, and it holds up the cockpit deck, and it was actually 3 pieces. They're 3/4 inch thick, I don't know, maybe I'd say 2.5 inches wide, and they've got quite a bend to them, as you can see, and they've got quite a bend in the other direction as well. Now I bought 4 pieces of this wood thinking I could maybe get 2 out of each one. I only need 2 pieces, but I bought them. Everything was on sale, like I said, because the grain is a little off, but this thing has got such a curve to it that there's no way that I'm going to get more than 1 out of each of these pieces. And I have wider pieces, and I really don't want to wreck those. Yeah, this side, which is the lower side, which is what I'm kind of trying to maintain, that arc right there, I'll just mark it. On this top side, I want to keep a little extra, so I'm going to use this piece of 3/4 inch scrap piece of wood and trace along that. This side needs like 5 more inches, so I did put a mark right here. I've already unclamped the other side, and I'm going to have to just slide the whole thing down. Got my router set up with a flush cutting bit in there, so I'll just route away, and it should match the profile of the original one. finished routed part along the whole length. Still have the other piece in there. It's still kind of half clamped on down on this end here. But yeah, the whole bottom edge is routed to match the original. And next step is to bring it over to the boat and see how it fits. These pieces have a camber to them, so I have to match the camber onto that piece. So I have to temporarily attach that to the transom, this piece here. Then I can align a straight edge and mark where the top of this piece has to be cut. It's extra high right now. So I don't know, it's a little hard to explain, but let me just do it. I'm tongue-tied today anyways. The first issue I'm coming up with when I'm trying to fit this in is there's too much epoxy down in this corner when I installed this. I gotta flatten this out. Start pushing it over. That's the gap I have to get rid of. So I'm gonna have to notch this a little bit, and then the whole thing will drop down probably about 1/8 inch or so. I do that on both sides. Alright, now we're on the starboard side. I'm gonna just mark it. I'm just gonna show it over here. So I'm just gonna mark on this piece of wood where I have to notch it so it'll drop down. I'll probably go a little further than that, but that's the first step. Then I gotta get the actual angle, which I don't know how I'm gonna do that. I know this has to go down 1/8 inch, so I'll probably just take 1/8 inch off the back and then try it again. That's all I can do. Yeah. Okay. What we're gonna do, we're gonna wing it. So there it is. I mean, if I was a little better with a chisel, I probably would have chiseled it, but more comfortable with an oscillating tool. So I'm going to do the other side. So that was a bit fidgety, but I did get it. This side kind of fit right away once I chopped it. But it was the other side I had some difficulty with over here. But it's sitting nice. There's no gap there. There was a gap there before. So now it's sitting where I want it. I can start going along with this board. This board is basically gonna sitting flat on these two pieces, as flat as it's gonna be. And then I have to transfer that to this side. Before I do that, I actually want to screw this board into the transom where it's gonna be. Just because it's still not quite against the transom and it may twist or do something funny, I don't know. I just want to have it in its spot where it's going to be before I start messing around cutting the tops of it. So anyways, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to use the same length screws that the factory used. I'm going to use, these are 3/16 stainless, but that's how long they were, and there's not much engagement in there for these things, so I'm a little worried about that. But anyways, so yeah, I'm going to put 6 of them in there, and I can only get them in with a 90-degree drill. So. cut probably about 3/4 of an inch off this end, but this cut has to be at an angle. It's not straight up and down. So I captured the angle with this bevel yesterday. So I'm going to use this to set up the my jigsaw here, which is I'm going to cut it with. So I just have to set up the base so it's going to cut at that angle. Now I just have to think about this like 3 times because I've ran into situations where I set the angle and then I cut it in the wrong direction, and next thing you know, it's all screwed up. So anyways, this should work. It's going to sit like this. That's where the angle I want. So I think I'm good to go. Now I'll show you the bevel I cut. Now the factory didn't even bother with that. They just cut it straight. But you know, I have the luxury of not being on a schedule, and I can just do it the way it probably could have been done if they wanted to not worry about money. But you know, it is what it is. Now this one is actually attached to the transom right now, just with screws. There's no epoxy or anything in there. And the second one is the one I'm actually fitting. The first one, to get the top level, because it's at kind of an angle, you know, the transom is tipped back this way, you know, but the top is flat, so there's less than a 90-degree angle over here. So to get this angle here, I just went along with a straight edge, set it on these 2 frames, which I know are, you know, that's the level I'm going to have, and then just matched it on that side. So that was all fine and good. Now to put the second piece in after I kind of rough cut it, and it's up high in some spots, and you know, you can see here, like, it's so high it's not touching on this beam anymore. So I have to go along and give a little attention to the top of this. So that's kind of what I'm going to do today for a little while. You can see on this side I've already sorry about that. You can see on this side, jeez. You can see on this side I've already marked it, how much, kind of with a pencil. Should be able to see it. That's how far it has to come. I have to chop off of it or plane off of it or whatever I'm going to do. I think what I'm going to do is use my oscillating tool and just kind of cut it down, get it close, and then use a sander. Sand it the rest of the way. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be close. The factory didn't even do this. They just left the boards, you know, at 90 degrees. That was a little weird, but yeah, I just want a nice flat flush surface with these beams to attach my plywood deck to. So anyways, I'm going to be working on that. So what I'm working on today and kind of this weekend, this is Thursday, this piece up along the transom here, I want to get that piece installed hopefully by the end of the weekend. Before I do that, I got to put this piece in, and I got to put one on that side too. And you can see over here where I don't have one even made up yet, there's a gap, probably about an inch gap behind here. Now that's how the factory had it. They just had a piece of panel that just spread the gap between this piece and that piece. So everything in here, you can kind of push it, and it didn't have anything really supporting it for the actual panel that goes on the back here. So I want something to be attaching it to, at least on the bottom here. At the top, it's not going to have anything at all. Just be open up there. But it's going to provide a couple things. It'll provide a little bit of ventilation up through here for the engine compartment, and if any condensation forms on this wall right here, it'll be able to drip behind this and drip down into the bilge and not get trapped in behind if I just went right to the transom. So this piece is on a curve here, because the transom's curved, and this other piece has to match it. So to do that, I cut a bunch of reliefs in the back here. This is a 3/4 inch wide piece of mahogany. And I cut them about halfway through, so about 3/8 deep, every 2 inches, and that seemed to do the trick. I mean, you can see it's tightly against here, and it's not even held in with anything. The problem with this piece right now is that it's a little tight, snug in this area, and it doesn't really have to be snug, because I think I'm going to put this piece on, attach it to this piece before I put this piece on this weekend. I think that's the best way to do it. The problem I'm going to face right now is I have to introduce the curve to this before I put it on, because I can't, it's straight. I got to push this in pretty hard to slip it down in there, and if I do that, I'm going to just push all the epoxy off of there when I put it on there. So in this gap between it, hangs down from this area about 1 inch. Doesn't go down very far, just enough to put a couple screws in here to hold it, and it'll be epoxied in as well. So I think my plan is going to be, I'm going to pop this out of here. I'm going to cut it down a little bit on the sides. It can be actually pretty loose. So I'm going to cut quite a bit off the end, so it'll have a little wiggle room to get in there. And then I'm going to cover this area with plastic and fill all these relief cuts with epoxy, and then clamp this piece to the face of this piece just temporarily, so it takes on this curve. And I'm hoping that when the epoxy dries tomorrow, I pull it off and it has a bit of a curve to it. Now, it doesn't have to have the finished curve exactly, but if it's close, that would be nice. And so I'm going to do that here, and I'm going to do it over on this side. Alright, that's fitting a lot better. It's kind of loose. You can see now it has more of a gap in here, which is good, because once I screw it in, it'll pull it this way and it'll give it even more room. Same on this side. It's touching in the back now because it wants to straighten out. But once I pull it in, it'll give it a gap, and it'll fit really nice. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll figure out how we're going to do the epoxy part of it. And I'm just eyeballing this in. Get it close. This part comes down at kind of an angle. So, like everything on the boat, it's not straightforward. Okay, so now you can see there's plenty of room to wiggle that in on either side. Now, I can't get it in there because it doesn't have the relief cuts on the back, so I'm going to mark the relief cuts now, and then I'll go cut them. now we're basically just going to cover this wood so it doesn't get epoxy on it and these two pieces don't stick together. Dry overnight, and now we're going to take a look at it and see how it came out. It did its trick, and it looks, this actually has a curve in it. You check it right here. It does have a little curve to it. Well, hopefully these pieces of wood have a better memory than I do, because after they've been unclamped for a while, they seem to have gone back to their old straight ways. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So when I first put this in, this was all touching, and now there's a gap. So I think my plan is going to be to start screwing this one in the middle, work my way out and kind of wedge it in. I have a little wedge in here, I have another one right behind it in the middle, and just work my way from the center out, and hopefully it pulls it in. I'll keep wedging it and get it in there. That's my only hope right now. That piece was right up against there when I first put it in there. So the other side's the same way. So let's see what happens here. Well, pulled it in all the way across. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Hope you didn't mind me having a little fun with the editing at the end there. I probably edited out about an hour of myself complaining about the heat and the failures of my camera and everything else while I was filming that video at the time. And yeah, just poke a little fun at myself and my blows there. Anyways, hopefully you got a little entertainment out of it. So hopefully enough to come back for the next one. So until then, everyone have a good one, and we'll see you really soon right here on Renovation Sportfish.